Well, welcome to this edition of the 700 Club. Today is what's known as Maundy Thursday. As a part of our Holy Week tradition, we'll be sharing communion with you, the members of our audience. So I invite you right now to get some bread and wine or juice, whatever, so you can join us later on. But first, in the news, an in-your-face maneuver. China is pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into Iran, America's arch enemy. Well, what does this mean for the Islamic regime? And what imminent danger does this pose for the U.S. and other parts of the world? Shocking. George Thomas explains.
First off, the deal means China gets to pour billions of dollars into Iran's banking, telecommunications, transportation, and infrastructure sectors over the next 25 years, including huge investments in nuclear power, ports, and oil and gas industries. The cash infusion coming as the Islamic regime continues to endure the economic strain of U.S.-imposed sanctions and looks to China to ease their pain.
The investment for Iran means that China is backing it. And that is perhaps the most important benefit for Tehran. It knows that come hell or high water, Beijing will be behind it.
In exchange, Iran gives China a steady supply of oil to fuel its expanding economy. China imports more than 300,000 barrels of Iranian oil every day. This deal gives it even more oil at a deep discount.
Remember, the U.S. has sanctions on purchases of Iranian oil. And China, for the last year or so, has been buying it openly in violation of those sanctions. This is another indication, it's sort of an in-your-face maneuver on the part of Beijing.
The partnership means the communist government now has a strategic foothold in a region historically dominated by U.S. influence.
The Chinese are solidifying economic relationships, not just with the Iranians, but across the Gulf as well. And I think most importantly, they are looking to use the Iranians as a pawn in the larger game of strategic competition against the West, and in particular against America.
The agreement calls for closer military ties and more intelligence sharing. Experts warn the new China-Iran axis could mean potentially more money to fund the Islamic regime's proxy forces in Yemen, Syria, and Iraq, and further destabilize the Middle East.
Because it gives Iran backing, undermines every other country's diplomacy in the region. This is going to be a problem not only for Washington, but also for Jerusalem. It's going to be a problem for the Sunni Arab states.
Shi Wei-Wang, a Chinese-American, spent 40 months in an Iranian prison on alleged spy charges, gaining his freedom in a prisoner swap in 2019. He says the China-Iran deal is likely to force the Biden administration to give up more concessions as it seeks to rejoin the 2015 nuclear deal forged by President Obama and scrapped by President Trump. There's talk of a new proposal for Tehran with possible sanctions relief in coming weeks.
The Biden administration's eagerness to re-engage Iran is creating a conducive environment for China to entrench its influence and interest in Iran. And then if China can do that, other countries in the Middle East would be compelled to work with China closer.
As America pivots to Asia to confront Beijing's rise, it leaves a potential vacuum in the Middle East that has global powers like China and others only too happy to fill.
China, as well as Russia, are looking to capitalize on vacuums that the U.S. may leave, whether it's in the Levant or in the Persian Gulf, and use their military relationships, their economic relationships, and their political relationships to offset what they perceive to be declining U.S. power.
George Thomas, CBN News.
You know, folks, there was a time that I looked very hopefully to China. I thought China was going to be the largest Christian nation on the face of the earth. Things were moving in that direction. The Chinese are wonderful people. And suddenly this Xi Jinping took over, and it's a totalitarian dictatorship. And it's not just China. It used to be, they called it the Middle Kingdom, but he wants to take hegemony over the entire earth. And he's a major, major figure in challenging the United States. His total goal now is to surpass the United States in terms of economic power, in terms of military power. And do we have the ability to confront him? He's going to confront us in terms of Taiwan. He's going to confront us in the Middle East now. He's going to confront us in terms of the South China Sea. He's going to confront us in everything he does, including nuclear weapons. And it's a dangerous world. If there was ever a time to seek God in prayer, we're going to be challenged by the Iranians, by the North Koreans, by the Turks, and the Chinese and the Russians. They all now hate America, and they want to destroy the freedom that you and I enjoy. It's not a pleasant scenario, and we better do some praying on this one. Well, in other news, tossed into the river, dropped from the top of the wall, targeted for sex, little children and teenagers are suffering horrific abuse in the escalating catastrophe that's taking place at our border. John Jessup has more on that story from the CBN News Bureau in Washington. Here's John.
Pat, as we have been seeing for weeks now, thousands of children are making the journey alone. New video shows some of the horrors they're facing, both at the hands of smugglers and at the crowded conditions they're enduring in U.S. detention facilities. Heather Sells reports.
This Border Patrol video shows smugglers dropping two sisters, ages 3 and 5, over a 14-foot border wall, leaving them in the middle of the New Mexico desert in the middle of the night. Agents rescued the girls, taking them to a local hospital for a checkup. The girls are just two in a sea of 18,000 unaccompanied migrant children in U.S. custody. Border Patrol agents say many have suffered unimaginable atrocities at the hands of drug cartels and smugglers.
And as I got closer to her, I noticed that she couldn't speak. And I asked the medical staff what happened. And the reason she was going to the hospital because she had gotten gang raped. And the reason that she couldn't speak was because she had lost her voice in the process while she was getting raped.
Texas Rangers say they rescued a 6-month-old baby girl who was thrown into the river by smugglers. This just days after a 9-year-old girl lost her life trying to cross the river. This week, the Biden administration allowed journalists to access its main holding center. Here, 500 children occupy rooms meant for 32.
We're starting to see younger and younger kids being brought over by their sponsors, by relatives, by grandparents, whoever it is in the family that is actually asking for these kids and paying the fees to smuggle these kids into the country.
In this facility, they're forced to sleep on cold floors with foil blankets.
This is a reflection of the desperation you see in parts of Central America.
Migration expert Andrew Seeley says poverty, made worse by 2 hurricanes, has led parents to send their kids on alone, knowing the Biden administration will hear their cases. Many teenagers are coming to escape violence.
There are other alternatives to be pressed into service in a gang, or if they're girls, sometimes to be pressed into service as a girlfriend of a gang member. And if you don't want that life, and you want to be able to help your family, sometimes heading up to the border, as dangerous as that is and as scary as that is a better option.
Heather Sells, CBN News.
Thanks, Heather. Pat, clearly an overwhelmed system here.
You know, folks, it breaks their hearts to see this going on. I know there's trouble in Latin America, but it's not that much trouble. I mean, these people need to be helped, and if we want to help them, possibly a major entrepreneurship project, a major relief project in their country would be the way to go. But we cannot allow them to just invade our country. It's hurting them, and it's certainly hurting us. And for the laboring people in America, they're going to take your jobs away, and they're going to get education that a lot of times are being denied to our own children. I mean, there are bad things happening to us because of this invasion. And now they're being bussed into the other parts of America, not just on the border, but into the central parts of our country. And not to mention the COVID infection and all the rest of it. But we've got to stop it. And the Biden administration seems to be just incapable of stopping it, or somehow they don't want to stop it. But they will not acknowledge the fact that Donald Trump did some good things while he was president. And so they want to say, we're going to reverse everything he did, whatever the consequence. John?
Pat, right here in Washington, where lawmakers are considering the multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure plan the president laid out Thursday. Mr. Biden detailed the costs and how he plans to pay for it. CBN White House correspondent Eric Phillips explains.
This infrastructure plan is already facing opposition all the way around, from the left, center, and right. Still, the president is forging ahead on a plan that his administration says cannot wait.
It's a once-in-a-generation investment in America, unlike anything we've seen or done since we built the interstate highway system and the space race decades ago.
In blue-collar Pittsburgh, the president made his pitch for the American Jobs Plan.
I'll begin with the heart of the plan. It modernizes transportation infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our airports.
Key items include replacing lead piping across the country, 5,000 charging stations for electric cars, improving the nation's power grid, and a focus on research and development.
Markets like battery technology, biotechnology, computer chips, clean energy, the competition with China in particular.
In the process, the president says, putting Americans to work on good-paying jobs.
Not a contract will go out that I control that will not go to a company that is an American company with American products all the way down the line and American workers.
The price tag, about $2 trillion spread over 8 years. The Biden payment plan, tax increases for those making more than $400,000 a year, as well as businesses.
This is not to target those who've made it, not to seek retribution. This is about opening opportunities for everybody else. We're going to raise the corporate tax. No one should be able to complain about that. It's still lower than what that rate was between World War II and 2017.
The president also wants to close loopholes that allow Fortune 500 companies to escape paying taxes and eliminate deductions for corporations that take jobs overseas.
It's honest. It's fiscally responsible.
This is really a Green New Deal through a back door.
Joel Griffith with the Heritage Foundation says not only will the plan hurt the economy, it won't deliver what Biden is selling.
The vast majority of this is really to implement a socialist far-left agenda. Buried within this plan are actually hundreds of billions of dollars to reorient our entire energy system.
A group of top Republicans has come together to form a coalition to push back against what they say would be unavoidable tax hikes. Meanwhile, the president is set to hold his first cabinet meeting today, one day after one of the biggest speeches in his first 100 days of office. In Washington, Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Thanks, Eric. Pat, with such a hefty price tag, it'll be a hefty lift to get that to pass.
Left doesn't understand economics. It's just too bad. They just want to soak the rich, and they want to reward their own people, and they want to reorient the society. But if they raise the corporate income tax, he wants to raise it up now. It'll be probably the highest in the world. It'll even be higher than China, of all places. And we're in the death knell of a competition with people like China. And the Biden administration wants to cripple our corporations in the name of, quote, tax fairness. And, you know, the United States corporate income tax was one of the highest in the world. It was brought back, and suddenly our corporations are much more competitive. That means they hire more people, they buy more goods, they have more productive activities. But if the money's being soaked up by taxation, then they don't have it. And if they can't compete, I mean, if we're selling in the global market and our corporations can't compete with prices, then somebody else is going to take the business. It's just that simple. I mean, you know, it's not like it's a closed system we're working in. There's a global market for stocks, market for steel, market for cars, market for airplanes, market for everything we do. And if our corporations can't compete because of burdensome taxes, who do the Biden people think is going to pay the bills? They can't hire workers, they can't buy goods, so the economy stagnates. Well, that's what you got, folks. I don't know who put them in, but I must confess, it wasn't me.